Well, welcome everybody. This is a town hall for the MNBC by-election. Happy to have our participants here tonight. As people come in, I'll bring them in and add them to the meeting. I'm just by myself this evening, so I'm going to manage that just to the side. So we're here tonight to have a town hall with our two candidates for the 2SLGBTQQIA plus Governance Council Chair. So we have two candidates here for that office this evening. You're going to get a chance to meet them and learn a bit about them. Our session tonight is recorded. So by virtue of your participation, you're consenting to that recording. And be aware that we will be uploading it to YouTube, and it'll be shared on MNBC website within 48 hours. So if you're not comfortable with your image being presented that way, please feel free to turn off your camera. And I encourage candidates to keep their cameras on just so folks can see who you are and when you're speaking. That adds some flavor and some real content to this evening's session. I am Lawrence Lewis. I'm your Chief Electoral Officer. This, I think, will be the fifth time that One Feather in my office has supported MNBC in elections and by-elections. Real honor and a privilege to do the work that we do. I am Indigenous. I am from the Wee-Way-Kay Nation on Vancouver Island, so First Nation, and the CEO and founder of One Feather. We are an Indigenous technology company, and what we deliver are digital solutions for Indigenous people across the country. So that includes First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. We work with over 300 nations across the country and do about between 130 and 150 voting events every year. And in 2024, not quite done yet, but 2024, over 50,000 electronic ballots cast in various types of voting events across the country. It is an honor and a privilege to do the work that we do and serve and be invited into your community to help support in these really important governance decisions, particularly when we're leading, when we're selecting our own people to lead us into the future. So again, just want to restate, just a real honor and privilege to do the work that we do and be here and be invited in to help make this happen this evening. So where I come from, we say Gelikatsla, Gelikatsla. Thank you very much. So tonight, you'll notice when you come in to join the meeting this evening, you are automatically muted. The only folks that I would like to have unmuted during the session are the candidates, and that's just to keep some order and some focus on what's going on and not be distracted by side conversations and other things that might happen in the background. People forget sometimes they're on it when they're on these video conference calls. Do encourage members or participants here this evening, again, if you have questions, please post them in the chat column, and I'll keep track of those, and we'll have an opportunity to ask those of the candidates. Tonight's session is pretty straightforward. I'll conclude my remarks in just a moment. I'm going to hand it over to the candidates to provide some opening statements, and they can take 3 to 5 minutes to do that. I'm going to run a clock in the background. I will give you a 30-second nudge when you're approaching that time limit. You'll then have an opportunity to speak specifically to your platform. So we'll give you up to another 5 minutes to speak to your platform. Then we'll get into some questions and we'll see what the folks have to ask. Like I said, I have some prepared comments as well to get us started, or some prepared questions to get us started. And then you'll have an opportunity to provide some closing remarks. So 3 minutes for that. It's not like we've got to run through 15 candidates tonight, so we will have some latitude on that time. Feel free to push. And if I give you that 30-second warning and you still need another minute, please take the time to finish. Like I said, we're here to make this a good event for everybody and allow you, particularly the candidates, to get through what you want to speak to. We'll then conclude the evening with a wrap up. I'll say goodbye, and that will be that. Like I said, the session will be being recorded and will be turned over to MNBC for them to upload to their YouTube channel and available online within 48 hours. Candidates are encouraged to find that link and share it as they wish. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to the candidates. Angel, it's a random selection, just a flip of the coin. You will get to go first. Again, 3 to 5 minutes to provide some introductory comments. And just candidates, you can feel free to keep your mic unmuted if you wish, just through the whole session. just so I don't have to give you permission to mute and unmute as we move through the evening. So over to you, Angel.
Well, so Tanze, my name is Angel Robinson. My pronouns are they, them. I am calling in tonight from the territory of the Lekwungen people. I'm, my family names include Desjardins, Cardinal, Trottier, Belcomer, Moreau, Rosette, Fleury, and Flamand. And my ancestral connections are to the Red River and Lac La Biche. I'm a member of the Métis Nation of Greater Victoria, and I've served on the board for about 11 years. I advocated for the creation of the 2SLGBTQQIA plus rep in my local community. And I served in that position for 2 terms before being elected as vice president. I also established the 2SLGBTQQIA plus council in my local community. And I can continue to support the 2SLGBTQQIA plus rep in that capacity. I have been a part of the Métis Nation BC since I was a preteen when my grandma was able to get her citizen back. She had been taken from her family when she was very young and placed in an orphanage. And so it was many years before she took the journey of family finding again. And I owe it to her that I was able to connect with my community at a much younger age and be supported by all the amazing people that I know now and my elders. Outside of my work with the Métis Nation, I'm a caregiver for a 6-year-old. My little nephew, he was out looking at Christmas trees right now, I think. Very excited about the holiday season. And I work for the province currently as a senior policy analyst. I did the Indigenous Youth Internship Program back in 2017 and 2018. And that helped me to grow into the career that I have currently. I'm grateful to be here this evening, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Excellent, thank you. Louis, over to you.
Hey, Swale, Town Say Bonjour, everyone. My name is Louis de Jager. He, him, his are my pronouns. My ancestral family names are Sinclair, Norquay, Truthwaite, Monkmans, all from St. Andrews, near Selkirk, north of Winnipeg in Manitoba. My current home is in Chilliwack on Chilkowiak territory. And I was a restaurant owner for the longest time. Owning a restaurant in Chilliwack from 2004 until 2016. I sold it to my chef. And then I actually went and got my degree in business. So something I've always wanted to do. My family never had the money to actually put us through post-secondary school. So it's something that I always wanted to do, and I just wanted that piece of paper, just to just to have that. And then at that time, I ran for federal office for the Liberal Party of Canada. I also ran for City Hall as well. I've always been involved in my community in Chilliwack, and in several different positions as a volunteer, as a fundraiser, and eventually becoming president and moving us into our own home. There, I created a plan for the community, and it continues to this day with great leadership. And our community, I'm happy to say, is pretty well self-sustainable. We've invested wisely. We work the community and the community hall in a way in which actually makes us money now. So for me, it's always been about getting to that point of self-sustainability, because working as a nonprofit or a society is difficult, and you're always looking for that next grant, or where else is the money going to come from to do the things that we need to do in order to support the programming and to support our elders and the gatherings that we do. I live in my house with my husband of 8 years, who's from the States, and I help take care of my sister and her husband, who live upstairs. He is suffering from Alzheimer's, so we work together as a family. And her son also lives in my house as well. He's a Special Olympian and 5-time gold medalist for Canada in speed skating, so very proud of that work. And he still works as a dishwasher in my restaurant. So very lots of drive, and so that family aspect to me is very important. I've worked for Métis Nation BC as Minister of Health and Minister of Economic Development. Very happy to be elected in 2020, and I'm very excited and happy to pursue this position. I've been an advocate for 2S and queer folk for for as long as I can remember, and I'm 60 years old, so I've been through many pandemics and struggles, and I've had to work with community to help each other. So I want to take that and bring that all that experience forward and develop this position into something that is self-sustainable and works for all of our communities around the province. Thanks, Lawrence.
Awesome, thank you. Just candidates, just so you're aware, if you hear the little ding 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 in the background, that will be your warning from a time. I don't think we'll have any issues with that this evening, but just I forgot to mention that earlier. Before we move into the opportunity for candidates to provide their platform, I do want to just update a couple things. So as everyone on the call is probably acutely aware, the vote date for this by-election is January 5th, 2025. And all other offices aside from this governance chair position were acclaimed. And so that you'll only see a ballot for this office. There are still a number of vacant offices available, but they, of course, are kind of subject now until another by-election, or may just in fact stay vacant. But please visit the MNBC website if you want to get a full list of those offices, those that were acclaimed. Also, the nature of this voting event is such that the opportunity to vote will be offered to all MNBC citizens. Okay. However, the requirement or the request is that only 2SLGBTQQIA plus folks who self-identify cast a ballot. There's no way for us to track or to manage that. It's a self-declaration exercise. And so we'll look for voters to exercise that discretion when they're casting that ballot. That decision was made by MNBC, and we are just implementing that condition. So on the basis of voter anonymity and sometimes the nature of making that identification, wanted it to be self-declared and not something that we track or keep record of. Okay, so we are not tracking or providing any data back to MNBC around that status. So it's intended to be fully anonymous and anonymity for folks who choose to vote. So I want to just state that, of course, 18 years and older. The other thing that in case people have questions about, well, what's going to happen with mail-in ballots, because the Canada Post strike is now over, mandated to be concluded, and mail delivery or mail carrier services are supposed to start again today. We have, actually, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see here that we have just outside the door, you see that tail end of those red bins there. That's the back end of over 22,000 mail-in ballots that were prepared to be sent out. However, what Canada Post has indicated is that they won't receive those ballots. They will not take those ballots from us this week because of the size of the volume. And so in consideration of that, and in conversation with MNBC, that executive team, the decision was made that those mail-in ballots will not be sent. They just simply will not get to voters in time. In fact, you would likely receive those mail-in ballots after the poll closed on January 5th. That was the consensus that was provided in terms of our conversations with Canada Post. So your opportunities to vote are contained to electronic voting. MNBC voters and participants are very familiar with that. In your past voting events, that's been the primary form of voting. So do encourage your folks, your families, and those who wish to participate in this voting event to go to onefeather.ca, create a profile if you haven't already done that, and cast your vote electronically if you self-identify and are eligible to vote pursuant to the rules of this voting event. Happy to take questions directly at any point in time on that. You can email me or you could leave a message here and we'll respond. I won't ask candidates to deal with any of that kind of stuff. I'll deal with those things offline, but please, if you have concerns or issues or anyone's challenged in terms of voting electronically, please reach out to our support line and help us to make all that stuff happen. Okay, back to the candidates. The floor is yours. Again, Lewis, 5 minutes for a platform statement or continue the conversation in terms of how you see your role if elected in this capacity as governance chair.
Great, thanks very much. Well, I was the one who actually put forward the motion at the MNGA to establish a 2SLGBTQQIA body, at least a committee that could advise the MNGA. So that's where it all sort of began. And here we are. We're at the point of electing a full council now and really sinking our teeth in and with the help of Moji and working with women and working with the youth chair to really help build those three ministries and work together. So that has been sort of the core of what I would like to accomplish. So I've developed a 7-point policy platform that I released on my Facebook page, Louis DeJager for 2SLGBTQQIA chairperson, and you can go into that. But the 7-point platform starts with embedding 2S and queer needs in all our ministries, including aligning the 2SLGBTQQIA Act with both the Women's Act and the Youth Act, because together there are no limits to what we can achieve. To advocate for direct funding for Métis, 2S, and queer citizens living in BC, along with MNBC's women and youth, developing a fiscal framework and budget with our women and our youth ministries that targets raising our own money so that becoming self-sustaining, self-sufficient, and independent of government is our #1 goal. Number 3 is developing regional queer cafes that offer opportunity for 2S and queer folk to gather. This includes a provincial queer cafe podcast to reach those that want to connect but don't have the resources or the courage to travel to those safe spaces. Working with elders to help guide and encourage those individuals within a cultural lens. 5, working with our health ministry to offer 2S and queer specific health and mental health networks that can be accessed wherever they are needed. And 6, to enhance queer data and utilize what we have to get what we need to best develop programming and meet the needs of Métis, 2S, and queer citizens right across the province. And the last one, number 7, is expanding partnerships to include other Indigenous 2S and queer networks around the province. So those are my goals, and with a great council and the help of presidents right around the province, I hope to achieve at least most of those things. Thanks, Lawrence.
Excellent, thank you. Angel, over to you.
Thank you. My platform is centered on building connections and building safety for 2S LGBTQIA plus Métis citizens. So for me, that is based on 4 cornerstones. One is on the connections, the foundation building itself, securing resources, and advocacy work. So when I speak to connections, I mean connections on a variety of levels. So that means connecting first with the council as a new council, getting to know each other, to make sure that we're starting from a good place, that we understand our values, our vision, our strengths, and where we can support each other. Establishing regular meetings, growing from the minimum of 4 times a year that's established in the Act, and working with a 2SLGBTQQIA plus elder to support the council in a good way. It means connecting with 2SLGBTQQI plus kin, supporting our regional reps to connect within their regions, exploring safe avenues for 2SLGBTQQI plus citizens to connect in under-engaged areas, building out capacity for 2SLGBTQQI plus reps in the charter communities, exploring more opportunities to gather, utilizing multiple tools for engagement, including surveys, virtual and in-person gatherings, social media, newsletters, engaging regularly with citizens for feedback on strategic initiatives, and pursuing funding to foster connections on a regional and provincial scale. That also includes engaging with the MNBC board, in particular with the Women's and the Youth Council, and weaving in 2SLGBTQQI plus voices across all areas of governance. It includes connecting with MNBC staff to get an overview of the work that has happened or is currently happening, to better understand the resources available and the challenges that we're facing, and to coordinate engagement and development of a strategic plan. It includes connecting with governments, fostering relationships with other Métis governments to connect with 2SLGBTQI plus kin and the wisdom and teachings that knowledge holders hold. Exploring ways to build better relationships with First Nations and respect protocol. Connecting with provincial government to weave the voices of 2SLGBTQI plus Métis citizens into policies, services, and programming. And to advocate for funding for targeted engagement. And I think one of the critical pieces would be connecting with the federal government to advocate for long-term core funding, support the governance prior to the federal election. And then also means connecting with organizations that are already supporting 2SLGBTQI plus and Métis people outside of MNBC. And that could include organizations like Gale, which has been doing amazing research with community or with friendship centers. And that's to seek partnership opportunities to build out our networks, to collaborate on research, to partner on funding opportunities and advance strategic initiatives. Another one of the priorities is to build a strong foundation. And so part of that is building a strategic plan that is informed by robust engagement, that contains tangible strategic priorities, that is budgeted and is actionable in the short, mid, and long term. It includes developing council policies, including our meeting processes, our roles and responsibilities, conflict resolution, engagement protocols, and how we use our resources. Part of that is trying to fill gaps in our representation, so working in regions 5, 6, and 7, and collaborating with the women in youth care to help bridge those, youth council, to bridge those gaps. I think part of that is building more education materials and raising awareness around the 2SLGBTQI plus council and initiatives, and working with the regional reps and the chartered community presidents who have already been doing that work. Well, those two pieces in particular, I think, are essential in creating a strong foundation and building a strategic plan that will allow us to pave the way forward for the future. And the intention is to create a council that has some longevity and to make it easier for the folks who come after us. Thank you.
Perfect. 5 seconds to spare. Well done. Awesome. All right, so we're going to get right into the questions. And I think if it's okay with the candidates, we'll just continue in the sequence we have. So Louis, I'll have you lead, and then Angel, if you could follow. And I just want to confirm you both can see the chat bar on your Zoom screen. Okay. Louis, you can see that okay?
I just pulled it up.
Okay, perfect. So we have one question already. So I'm just going to direct your attention to the question. And then I will pose the follow-on question in that chat bar. And if we can make that work this evening, that'll kind of be the process we go through tonight. So if you are the Lewis, I'll have you lead, and then if you want to read the question, or I'll read the question, and then after I finish reading it, you guys you both can tackle that. Okay, great, awesome, great. So, question from Anya asks, what, if anything, has been your involvement beyond community level, specifically on behalf of 2SLGBTQQIA plus citizens, for instance, with the creation of the new 2S governance in-person or online gatherings, etc.? So if you could speak to that.
Okay, so has been your involvement beyond a community level specifically? So for me, it's a lifetime. I mean, I've lived this. I've been out, even with my restaurant. We were actually threatened. I mean, we were the first one in Chilliwack, and this is going back to 2004. So we were hosting a gathering space for people, and it was youth. Even before then, years ago in Abbotsford, I was volunteering as a mentor with a youth group called Youth Quest. And so we were trying to get that involved in Chilliwack. So in person and online and gatherings. So that kind of work continued all the way through, really until MNBC, and even standing up sort of in the middle of a very large AGM and coming out and advocating for inclusion for 2S people in our constitution that was being developed by the MNC at the time, and being rejected at that point too. So I faced a lot of those doors, but I got up and brushed myself off again and kept going and kept pushing. Even today, when I was Minister of Health for Métis Nation BC, creating the partnership accord, which was about a year and a half in the making, I got implemented in Section 7, page 23. It guarantees rights for Two-Spirit and queer folk, and that's with 32 First Nations in the Fraser catchment. So everywhere I go, I'm pushing for inclusion, and if we're not there, I insert us there, or I make sure that we're part of it. So on the governance side, I think I've got the experience. I'm able to do that. I've been able to raise money, bring money in for the women, not just 2SLGBTQQIA+, but for women and for youth. And that's what I'm good at. And I want to be able to continue to be at those tables to advocate for government, because things are going to change. We can see that now that we're probably not going to have a federal government that is going to be so supportive. We're going to have to look at other areas, including the province, and start participating at those levels. And also the partnerships that we're able to develop within municipalities, and making sure that we're on those tables and our voices are clear and they're loud and they're accessible, adaptable, collaborative. They come with empathy and integrity. So there's a good mix of us out there. We just need to connect and make sure that we're leading the way. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, Anya.
Excellent, thank you. Angel, over to you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just reviewing the question again to make sure I have it in mind. But yeah, so my work beyond the community level, or I should say, combined with at the community level, began with a grant application. So as a rep with the 2SL, or with the Métis Nation of Greater Victoria, I had a grant opportunity come upon me. It was about maybe 5 days before it closed, as it tends to come to our communities. And it was a grant for health research. And one of the priorities within that grant was for 2SLGBTQIA+ people and Indigenous folks. So I'd had this vision of bringing more 2SLGBTQIA+ inclusion into our nation. And I recognized that to do that, that we would need to have some of the data to back up the experiences that we as 2SLGBTQI plus Métis people are already intimately familiar with. But unfortunately, that our government systems, all levels of government need data to back that up. So I put in a grant application for the first body of 2SLGBTQI plus Métis specific research that would explore the lived experiences of our 2SLGBTQI plus Métis kin, as well as the first 2SLGBTQI plus Métis specific gathering. So that came to fruition, and I believe we had the gathering in 2022. And what came out of that was the connection to community for 2SLGBTQI plus Métis folks. And I met some incredible people who hadn't stepped into many spaces in the Métis community, often because of experiences with discrimination and a fear that they wouldn't be included. And one of the priorities that was identified in that research was the creation of 2SLGBTQI plus representation at all levels of our Métis governance. So taking that research, I drafted the 2SLGBTQI plus Act, modeled off of the Women's and Youth Act. And I took that act to every gathering that I was able to attend, to the 2SLGBTQI plus committee, and to the informal networks that I developed through the gathering with the Two Worlds, Two Spirit event, the Youth gathering, and worked together to develop this act and to ensure that our values were incorporated in the preamble of the act. So those were some of the things that I've done beyond the community level. And of course, supported by many of the incredibly talented folks and people like Caitlin Bird and Victoria Pruden, who had a lot of knowledge of the genesis of the Women in the Youth Act and representation there. And a lot of the work of John Beaker and Nicole Ludwig to align the language with our legislation. And yeah, I'm very happy to see that the 2SLGBTQI plus Act passed. It took a lot of advocacy, it took a lot of education, and I helped develop a lot of the education material and offered opportunities to learn about the 2SLGBTQI plus Act and what it entailed and where it had grown out of. But I also recognize that a lot of people did work doing advocacy work and having conversations and making those connections to help it along. Thank you for the question.
Excellent, thank you. Question number 2. How will you ensure 2SLGBTQQIA plus voices are meaningfully represented in MNBC's decision-making processes? Louis?
Great, thanks for the question. Communication, really, inclusion and shared leadership at the local level, bringing in allies, and also embedding all of those things within the ministries and within the work that we're doing at MNBC. I've done that sort of already with health and at some of the health tables to make sure that there is a space for us, even in housing. We have second stage housing that we've purchased already. I wanted to make sure that we would be part of that, and that resource could be accessed by us also. So I think at the board level, I was always doing that, and I've always been outspoken. I want to continue that work. It's also a point or something, it's an educational process. I know that we were doing Pride at Work program that was being initiated in MNBC. I'd like that to continue. And I'd also like to start the orange shirt design again. We were really involved in that, and also the pink shirt day as well, where we can design something, we can promote it, and we can all get behind not just fundraising for the groups, but also just the visibility and being out there. So all I can say is I would continue doing the work that I'm doing and making sure that the education is out there for our local leadership to help us in this work.
Excellent, thank you. Angel, question 2. See that? Just above Alicia's, and then we'll come back to Alicia's question next, but you mind? Go ahead.
So again, I think this circles back to the connection and engagement and to centering safety within that. So to me, the chairperson is guided by the regional reps, and those regional reps are guided by the citizens who live within their region. So part of that work will be supporting the regional reps to connect with the citizens in the whichever ways are appropriate. Sorry, I was just distracted by some sirens outside. Yeah, for me, this is supported by 3 poles. And one of those is listening and really hearing the heart of the messages that are coming to me. One of that is maintaining avenues to connect with regional reps and being informed by the data that we have currently that came out of the Two Worlds, Two Spirit research. Because I think one of the commitments that we make when we engage with people and ask them to share their stories and their experiences is that we commit to giving back with that. And so I think it's important to ensure that the data that we connected there is utilized to advocate and to start meeting the goals that were identified, the priorities that were identified in that report. I think it also includes utilizing and creating innovative tools to facilitate feedback from community through to the regional reps and to the chair in a safe way. And when I think about specifically 2SLGBTQQIA+ folks, is that we do need to center safety within that and provide more opportunities to connect anonymously. And to think outside the box in terms of, surveys may not always be the right tool. So how do we work in areas to provide different avenues? And where can we connect with folks who aren't already connected in with Métis Nation BC, or who are fearful of the backlash that they might face if they come into their identity and community. Another one of the key aspects is taking a supporting role. And so following the lead of the regional reps within their respective regions, because they will be the most familiar with their respective regions. Supporting and building the connections and engaging, acknowledging that the regional reps are also volunteers. And so using my increased capacity to support in whichever ways I can. Working with the regional reps to support communities to build more 2SLGBTQQI+ representation into the charter community level. And then also working to explore what role I can play in supporting areas where there is no regional rep at this time, in particular in the North. And finally, the advocacy piece. So ensuring that I'm voicing the 2SLGBTQI+ perspective at the board level across all matters of our governance, because all aspects of our governance, our policies and programming impacts 2SLGBTQI+ people. And so it needs to be inclusive. And it also mean advocating and lobbying on a provincial and federal level for the resources to support our 2SLGBTQI+ citizens and the initiatives. and in particular to take a real stand against the rising hostility towards 2SLGBTQI plus people, and especially our trans youth, which we've seen be targeted by hate in other provinces. I think those are some of the ways that we can ensure that the 2SLGBTQI plus voice is heard and uplifted in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Lewis, I've kind of taken a couple of, restating Lorraine Greaves' question from earlier. Thank you, Anya, for posting that again. And so maybe, Lewis, you could, in answering this question, you could also tie in a response to how you might, in the context of this question, or as an add-on, how regions without reps might be, how you might serve those communities if you're elected. What is your experience and commitment to ensure our trans relatives are not left behind? Is the question originally from Lorraine Greaves.
Yeah, a few years ago, I started the Queer Cafe out in Chilliwack. Now, Chilliwack is a rural community, so we don't have the safety when you step out on the streets of either Vancouver or Victoria or areas like that where, you're not the only one. You're pretty visible when you're stepping out on the streets of Chilliwack, and we wanted a safe space to sort of be able not just to educate, but just to host events. So we started the Queer Cafe with the Chilliwack Pride Society, and we also had some connections with the Gender Support Network. So on 2 nights a week, one night the Gender Support Network takes over. They also work with families of trans as well. We even had one night where we offered a clothes exchange, and that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. To see people come in absolutely loaded with boxes of clothes, because that is probably one of the most expensive things to purchase is your skin. And what is it like to wear the clothes in safety with other people of what you really are inside? And so we hosted a couple of those events that were just amazing and very, very moving, not just for the parents, but for those of us who were helping organize. And those, I think, are the kind things that we could easily do with the Queer Cafe. We can also start in those northern communities by, I stated in my platform on number 3 is having that queer podcast where people can start exchanging ideas and start participating, especially in the north, where we can establish some of those events that we'd be able to put on. So the other one is being involved in schools, I think is one of the things that we need to do, working with our youth and women's chairperson on a shared path forward. We need to be more involved with the province in developing things for students, supports for students and their families impacted by the increase of hate speech and protests affecting the K-12 system. So we've got quite a bit of experience with that out here in Chilliwack. We've made a lot of moves forward, but we're in a challenging space. So I know what the North is going through. I was able to visit 34 of our 39 charter communities, and those northern communities, we had some great conversations, but we also came up with some great solutions as well. So it's working with our local regional rep. We will get somebody up there and start moving things forward. Thanks for the question.
Excellent, thank you. Angel.
Yeah, so I think I'll speak first to the question around supporting more inclusion in the North and more to SLGBTQI plus representation. And I think that will require some working together and collaboration. And I look to charter community presidents for guidance on connecting with the North through the charter community level. And I also think that connecting with organizations that are already supporting to us LGBTQI plus people in the North is a good way to assess how our queer kin are doing in general. And I think often we find our Métis people are connecting somewhere. So in my experience, um, as a non-binary person, I often felt that I had to choose between those facets of my identity, being queer and non-binary or being Métis, because it was hard to find a space where I felt like I could be my most authentic self. And so I think for folks who are 2SLGBTQQIA+, if they're not finding their community in their charter communities, they may be finding it within the queer communities in the North. So bridging those partnerships and seeking connections within those existing organizations and informal networks might be a way to start bringing folks into community. I think another way it can support the North is also to take a look together at the bylaws within the community and just to review for inclusive language, for example. And so I think part of I acknowledge that the chairperson role as a position that gets compensated comes with a lot of privilege. And I think one of the responsibilities to use that privilege to support our charter communities and the volunteers that are putting in so much of their time and recognize that the capacity there means that not only do you have to balance the needs of 2SLGBTQQI+ people, but also the whole of community. And while I believe strongly that supporting 2SLGBTQQI+ people and having that inclusion makes the community stronger, I think it also needs work to get to that point. So I think it will take some collaboration and a lot of work to get there. And I think we can do it. Thank you for that question. And in terms of supporting trans folks and ensuring no one gets left behind, I think that is a multifaceted approach to that. Yeah, so I think some really base level avenues for inclusion include things like gender inclusive and gender neutral washrooms at our events, and being mindful of the places that we book when we gather so that our trans and gender diverse people are included in the structure of the space itself. It looks like reviewing our policies to ensure that we have inclusive language throughout. I know there's still spaces in our legislation that are gendered, and so that immediately leaves out gender diverse people. I think it looks like reviewing our citizenship and our IDs and supporting folks to make the process of transitioning easier and helping to make some pathways when people are seeking gender affirmation in their legal documents. As someone who is also trans, I remember it was really difficult and took months of work just to get the gender X marker on my ID. I think it takes a lot of education as well, building the connections within communities to build trust and foster good relationships so that as we're talking about trans folks and trans issues, we're doing so from a good place. I think it also includes advocating and connecting with the provincial and federal governments to make sure that the Métis perspective is included in the existing initiative supporting trans folks. And another piece is also connecting with knowledge holders. I had the opportunity to speak with a medicine person who held knowledge of medicines that could support folks with their transition that have been used pre-colonization. So I think that knowledge also supports trans people because it shows us that we have always been here. We have always been part of our communities, and our people have always been looking out for us. So those are just some of the ways that I think we can make sure that we're not leaving behind our trans citizens either.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to pose question 4. What concrete steps would you take in your first year to make MNBC services more inclusive of 2SLGBTQQIA plus citizens? Louis.
Well, I think really is getting our act together. I mean, it's here we are. We have a complete provincial election. We're the ones who asked for this as a community from our MNGA and our leaders of our communities to give us a chance, to give us the opportunity to do this work. That's going to be the council's mandate, I think, going forward. But to only have 2 people running in a provincial election is so expensive, and really it's sort of disappointing because I thought we were ready. I thought there was going to be lots of candidates coming forward. So we have to think about that process, and I think we have to take a look at this whole election and what we need to do, and we need to do better in order to get more candidates to run, especially in the north. Obviously, there is that fear factor. So maybe it's regrouping ourselves. So I think we have to look in the mirror and figure out, how are we going to do this? This is new. This is the first time in Canada. There's lots of chiefs and leaders that I've spoken to at tables that are proud of us, and they can't believe that Métis Nation BC had the courage to give us this opportunity. So I'm looking forward to that challenge. I have been in ministries. I can handle a ministry. I don't think this is at all a technical position. I think this is really about governance and who has experience in governance to pull this off and to make this a success, so that we are going to be able to be in those rooms face to face with those leaders and representatives of other departments, including MIR at the provincial level. There's a lot of work that can be done there, and really make sure that they know that we are here and we're going to represent 2S and queer folk, really well. So for me, it's working with Moji, and it's working with the youth and working with the women. I think as we embed and as we get our feet under us, I don't think anything should be rushed. I think it should be well thought out, and let's bring everyone to the table and listen to their ideas, and do it in a kind way. I think that's the fastest way forward. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Angel.
Yeah, so for me, I think the first year is going to be about coming together. And that's the piece that I would prioritize, is to continue to foster the relationships that we have already been building informally as 2SLGBTQQIA plus people. So I think, again, in the first month or two, I think really connecting in as a council and getting our feet on the ground, and really getting acknowledging that the 2SLGBTQQIA plus council, for the most part, will be stepping into the provincial role in an official capacity for the first time. And so that means really becoming familiar with the processes, with the ways that we operate, with connecting within the regions for the regional reps, connecting with the women in the youth councils, and then starting to pave the way forward. So connecting with 2SLGBTQI plus citizens with the intent of building a strategic plan. So not only fostering community, but also working towards the strategic plan. So identifying priorities, like going through the 2 Worlds, 2 Spirit. It's time for a 2 Spirit reconciliation report, and identifying like which pieces are still priorities and what has changed in the last couple of years. And I think one of the priorities of this first year is also going to be, again, connecting with the federal government and really advocating hard for core funding that will be multi-year. Because once the federal election happens, if the government changes, I think we're going to be in a really challenging place. And so, yes, planning ahead for a contingency is important, but also doing that advocacy work while we have the opportunity. So those are some of the things that I think would be priorities for the first year. And then also, I think connecting in with the North is going to be one of the priorities in that first year because we do want to have 2SLGBTQI plus representation in the regions in the North. I think that makes us stronger as a council and stronger as a people. And I think some of the work of the 2SLGBTQI plus council is going to be supporting charter communities in bringing in that 2SLGBTQI plus representation and connecting with citizens that may either still be feeling afraid to step into that piece of their identity while in community. And also bringing in our kin who may not be interacting within their communities already, because I recognize that our charter communities are the heart of who we are. And that is the place where people connect in first. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got two questions, and we'll go to David's first, David Allard, who asked, would you consider any ministerial portfolios that are not related directly to the purpose of the chair to be acceptable for the chair, or would it dilute the effectiveness of this new position? Louis.
Great, thanks for the question, David. You know what? This is a board position, so you're going to have to play a part on the board. So what I would do is the three ministries, the women and the youth and the 2S would need to work together. We're operating out of Moji. So I think that needs to solidify a little bit more. And I think the leadership needs to come together and work together on how we're going to increase the capacity and the participation from all three ministries, because I think all of them are almost at are definitely struggling. So for me, I think that has to be a priority, but also our nation is a priority. The skills that we bring to the table to this position can't just be administrative. They have to be you have to play an active role. This is part of our nation. It's part of governance. I didn't just do two portfolios, health and economic development. I went on the financial court. I was working with 20 committees, 20 separate committees, a lot of different areas, and I was learning it and cross-referencing as I went from each. It was much easier to have that sort of a perspective of where the nation was moving in all of these areas. So I'm personally one to never say no wherever they need me. If my skills are needed, I'm there. I am dedicating 110% like I did in the last years. Every month I wrote a report and it was publicly put on the site. All of those reports were available. People knew the work that I did, and I will continue to operate that way. That is my work ethic. I am not taking on anything else. This will be my full-time role, and I can juggle and chew gum and run and dance and jig and do all those things at the same time. And I expect that MNBC and its citizens and presidents would expect me to do the job that I've done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Angel.
Yeah, I think the priority in the first term will need to be 2SLGBTQQIA plus the council, because it is a new council and there's a lot of foundation building to do. That said, I also recognize that every aspect of our nation directly impacts 2SLGBTQI plus people. And so for me, looking at portfolios that align with the priorities of 2SLGBTQI plus people, where we're struggling the most, where we're meeting the most barriers, are things that are that would be a benefit to become involved with. And I think that also strengthens our nation. The more inclusive we are, the more we uplift each other, the stronger we are all together. So I think it is acceptable for the chair to take on other ministerial portfolios. And I also think that we need to be really intentional about how we're going to support the 2SLGBTQI plus council and our 2SLGBTQI plus citizens within that work. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anya's continuing to keep me honest this evening, make sure I don't miss any questions, so thank you. Original question from Rob Anderson. With the system relying upon the integrity of our citizens to represent themselves with authenticity, do you consider the plus to include the parents of 2SLGBTQQIA plus children of voting age, that is MNB citizens 18 plus? Why or why not? Louis.
Great question, and lots of chatter going on about this. It's not up to me to tell people who they are or where they fit in. I've had lots of conversations out there with people, and they don't like the fact that they need to be boxed into one area or another, or they need an election, or they need a body, or they need a government to tell them who they are. So that being said, I think it is up to the individual, and I don't know the cases of children or parents with children. Yeah, do they have an interest in their child? Absolutely. Absolutely. This election was consulted briefly with the 2S committee. We had members of the committee who wouldn't even show up to have this discussion and this conversation. So here we are, ballots going to everybody. One of the solutions that I personally had was that you request a ballot, but that wasn't even considered. So this is where we are in the election. And it's up to you, Lawrence, to make sure that the election follows the rules that MNBC gave you. It's not up to me as a candidate. I just have to fight and make sure I get my message out, and that we come together as a council after this and we have the time to clarify things, because I don't think we had enough time to properly think out this whole process, and I really wish we had. So I'm not in the position to tell a parent what they should not do in anything. That's up to them, and that's their family's decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Angel, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, so the plus is not inclusive of parents necessarily. It is inclusive of people who are 2SLGBTQIA plus. The plus refers specifically to sexualities and gender identities that aren't necessarily captured in the named components of the acronym. So Two-Spirit, meaning referring to diverse gender identities and sexualities that exist within our nations that we may not have the words for anymore, or that aren't captured within colonial constructs of gender identity and sexuality. The L standing for lesbian, women who are attracted to women. The G standing for gay, men who are attracted to men. The B referring to bisexuals, people who are attracted to both their own gender and people of other genders. the T referring to transgender people, the queer referring to folks, more of an umbrella term that encapsulates identities outside cisgendered individuals and or cisgender and heterosexual individuals. The Q for questioning referring to folks who know that they aren't heterosexual or cisgendered, but don't have the words yet to describe themselves. The I standing for intersex people, people who have a mix of female and male reproductive organs. And the A standing for agender or asexual, folks who don't identify with a gender or sexuality. And the plus encapsulates, again, the identities that are gender diverse or have a different sexuality that are not included in that acronym. So that might be people who are demisexual. So folks who only experience sexual attraction after they have developed a relationship with someone, and that it's not tied to gender, that attraction or romantic feeling. It might refer to gender fluid people, people whose gender fluctuates and who experience masculinity, femininity, or diverse genders at different times. It might refer to non-binary people generally, people who don't identify as either male or female. Those are all included as a plus. What's not included as a plus is people who are cisgendered, and that is people whose embodied experience aligns with the sex that they were assigned at birth, and people who are heterosexual, so people who are only attracted to people of the opposite sex or opposite gender. And it's pretty. Once you have a better understanding of what is encapsulated in 2SLGBTQQIA+, it's pretty straightforward. Of course, the Act relies on self-identification, and that was developed as part of the Act over a year or two of consultation and engagement with 2SLGBTQQIA+ citizens, specifically going over and discussing that piece leading up to the first MNGA that it was presented at the first MNGA, the subsequent annual general meeting, and the time period between then and the next MNGA. So it has been discussed over and over again. And we went with that, the self-identification, really to center safety within that. And the reason why we went with that is because 2SLGBTQI+ people are often at risk just by virtue of being identified. So there are countries in the world that we can't travel to because it's just illegal to exist there. There are still people who, when they come out, their careers are at risk because of the hate that still exists out there. There are educators in this province who have been chased out of the education system, out of their careers by this targeted hate campaigns where folks will call their workplace and harass and push for them to lose their careers. That stuff still happens. And so the reason for the self-identification was to provide a safe avenue for 2SLGBTQI+ people to at least vote on who they think can most or who can best represent their voice. And so at the very minimum, their voice is coming in that way. So yes, it doesn't rely on our people to have integrity, but it's not the only place in our nation that relies on our people, on the integrity of our people to participate as citizens. So thank you for the question.
Great, thank you. A bit of a follow-up on that point, and we have Andy asking if you believe as candidates that it's fair for a non-2SLGBTQQIA+ person to vote if they have a loved one who identifies, or as an ally or supporter. And maybe, Angel, I'll go to you first, and then Lewis, I'll come back to you if that's okay. So just quickly, if you can, what's your thoughts on that, Angel?
My my opinion is no. And so I think it's really important to create avenues for parents to connect in with the council, for youth to connect in with the council, and to explore generally our sorry, our elections act. So I think there are places where broadening the age that people can vote has been discussed. There are opportunities for partnership with the youth. And I do think that the voice of parents is important. I also think that we really need to honor that this is a space for 2SLGBTQQIA plus people to vote specifically on these matters. And I think we also need to recognize that sometimes parents aren't the allies that they think they are, that they're aspiring to be. And that as a caregiver myself, so like you do always do what you think is best for your children. And sometimes it's not the right move. And so I think building connections is important. Having avenues to connect with parents is important. Finding ways to bring in our young people is important. Supporting SOGI and integrating the Métis voice into that is important. And reviewing our elections and our voter eligibility overall is important. And I think that's part of healthy governance is to have regular reviews of our legislation with the input of our people. But at this time, I would say it's not appropriate for folks who are not 2SLGBTQI plus themselves to cast a vote. Okay.
Great, thank you. Louis.
This election is to elect a 2SLGBTQQIA plus chairperson. The rules are clear. If you identify as 2SLGBTQQIA plus, then you are to participate in this election. That is crystal clear to me. My nephew, who is asexual, who's a Special Olympian, who has disabilities, has an interest in this. He sees himself as exactly what you say, as the plus. He sees himself as a human being with human rights. This election is to elect that chairperson who's going to fight for those human rights in DRIPA, in all of the tables and at all of the tables that MNBC is at. We want proper representation, and that's why we want to elect the right person who can take that message, articulate it well, and advocate for the rights of 2SLGBTQIA to participate in the schools. I've walked many hallways, many times in Chilliwack, where they have taken a tape and put it across the gender-neutral washrooms, where a mom has walked in the door and was bawling her eyes out. Louis, I went in there right to the school. And so that's the advocacy and the courage that we need to be out, not hidden. I'm a warrior. I will be out. I'm not going to hide, and I won't stand behind hiding my voice or hiding my vote in anything. I want to be front and center. If I take this job, and hopefully if you vote me in, I will give you that warrior. That's going to make a safer world. Because at some point, some of us have to stand up. I've been in the trenches with losing 60 of my friends to AIDS. I've been in the trenches and watched that disease ravage our community. We know that. We've had a taste of that with COVID. There will be other challenges. We're there already with SOGI. We've got to be working with ARC and other organizations and really partnering with them, signing MOUs. That's how we're going to get the work done. We can't do it alone. We have to depend on those people. But for me, it's courage. And I've got the courage to take this position to the next level and make it successful for MNBC. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So we are coming to near the end of our session today, but we've also had a request to take a few minute bio break. So we are going to do that. We're going to pause for 5 minutes and let folks refresh and take a quick bio break. And then when we come back, we'll move on to the closing comments from the candidates. And I've posted a question there that if you wish could help inform those closing comments. And then we'll wrap up in a good way this evening. So with that, we'll pause for 5 minutes starting now, and we'll be back in a few. Thank you, everybody. Turn off my timer here. Welcome back, everyone. Just wait for Angel to join us. All right, welcome back. Well, I just want to again say thank everyone for participating tonight. It was fantastic. Some really great questions and some really awesome answers from our candidates. We're going to move into the last part of our session this evening and invite candidates to provide some closing comments. So you'll be back on the clock. So we'll keep this to we'll keep the limit at 5 minutes. Give each of you the opportunity to provide some closing comments, and you can. This is the context for you to choose if you like. I have put a question in the chat bar just to, I hope, encapsulate some of the remaining questions that have been posed that have been partially answered perhaps by other questions. But what specific policies would you champion for the Métis 2SLGBTQQIA plus citizens? So if you wouldn't mind incorporating that into your closing comments, this will be your last opportunity to speak tonight. Angel, we're going to start with you, and Lewis will close off with you if that's okay. So the floor is yours, Angel.
Thanks. First, I just want to circle back to the previous question. I do want to make it clear that I think parents play such an integral role in the lives of our young people. And I don't want to discourage our parents from connecting with the 2SLGBTQQI plus council. And I also just want to say that 2SLGBTQQI plus people can still run for other positions on the board, just like women can run outside of the Women's Council. So I think it's also important to ask the questions about 2SLGBTQQI plus inclusion and how your leaders are going to represent and support your young people, your children, and your youth, and support you as parents as well. And those are the places where your vote can lend voice to your children. So I encourage folks to continue to ask about 2SLGBTQI plus inclusion across all areas of our governance, because it is important and we do need to work together, and all leaders should be thinking about inclusion. And as a council, as a 2SLGBTQI plus council, part of our role can be to support leaders in continuing that work and seeing how we can grow together this way. In terms of policy implementation, I think this thing that I would like to do over the first term is to really look at our legislation, to work with the governance committee, and to take a lens of inclusion and 2SLGBTQI plus safety within our legislation, to make sure at the very least that the language is gender inclusive, for example. That the processes that we have doesn't disadvantage 2SLGBTQI plus folks. And oftentimes, I think what we find is that the places where 2SLGBTQI plus people are disadvantaged are women and our youth are experiencing the same thing. And so I think really looking at legislation from the very top is going to be important. Yeah, and again, thank you for the opportunity. If you have any further questions after the town hall or wish to connect with me, I'll post my website in chat and my email or chat. And please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions or want to connect ahead of January 5th. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Lewis.
Great. Thanks very much, Lawrence. Thank you very much for hosting. Thanks, everyone, for sacrificing a bit of your dinner hour to join us here and have some great conversations. Plenty more to come, that's for sure. I do. I've laid out a 7-point policy platform. And I think those are the areas that we really can make some movement on. I'd like to discuss that with the new council and how we can implement that. But I also would like to include the women and youth as well, because there are a lot of areas I know that we could share. And that's what I'm talking about, is taking, this is nation building, but not one ministry can do it alone. Working within and with other departments, I think, is crucial to the success of this new ministry. I also think we need to deal with reality. And the reality is that we just can't be another ministry for MNBC to be pulling away dollars that we could be doing other things with. We have to be self-sustainable. We can be responsible at most of the work that we do, and we should be doing that in every project that we do. We can do fundraising. We can do those things that not only bring us together, but also create longevity in some of those projects. I just wanted to say that, what I believe, what I've been told, is that we get $6,000 for this committee. We get $6,000 for women, and we get $6,000 for youth. And that is a real sad state of affairs to be running a ministry. And in our 2S Act, we have amounts to pay people for these meetings. It bothers me, as being with my degree in business, is that how do we do this? How long can we even bring people together? So I think there needs to be some serious conversations, and it's not just begging for money. We need to be productive and be able to give the government back. A lot of this is in the surveys. I know we've shared that Two World, Two Spirit survey with Fraser Health, with other departments. That's how we got our name specifically mentioned in some of those accords. So that's a strategy that we can implement, is by taking the data, taking what we have and using it to get what we want. Is that sustainability, so that we are helping people, especially in those communities that are far away from some of the resources that they really need. We also need to make sure we're helping the parents who are the main the main arms that are holding their kids together during some of these really difficult times. So there's a role for us to play. It's a serious role, and I can do that. I've raised money for the ministries. I've brought the dollars in from the advocacy and the plans and the strategies that I can implement and that I can help design. I also want to mention elders, because we don't talk about that. I'm 60 years old, and I know a lot of men who are old and who are gay and who are lonely and who are statistics. And we haven't even talked about housing for elders and how we deal with elder housing with Two-Spirit people. And it just can't be that. It also has to go right across the board to all 2SLGBTQQIA plus people who are aging. What does that look like? I think that's a great conversation to have. I have that proven experience and proven track record to get this job done. So please go online and vote for Louis DeJager. You won't be disappointed. I will work extremely hard for my nation and for you. Thanks very much, Chi McWitch.
Excellent. Thank you all, and thank you again. Candidates, real pleasure to get to know you a lot better this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share this space, and to all the folks who participated this evening, and the great questions that came forward. Absolutely fabulous. Just a reminder, polls close on January 5th, so please get out and vote if you're eligible. The only way to vote is electronically. So www.onefeather.ca. Please create a profile and register to so that you can vote if you're eligible and so choose to. So spread that word. The only option is electronically for this event. Reminder, this session is recorded. It will be shared with MNBC tomorrow, who will then put it up on their YouTube channel for sharing, and candidates are free to use this content as they see fit for their campaign purposes. And where I come from, we say at the close of an event and a thank you and a blessing. Oh, that's the timer. Certainly kill that. Hela Kesla. All the very best. Safe travels. Have a wonderful holiday season. And again, all the very best. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, participants. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks.